There's something you've been doing your entire life that's slowly killing you. You eat until you're satisfied. But what if this habit, eating until completely full, is why people in the West age rapidly while their counterparts across the Pacific defy aging itself? Stay with me. What you're about to discover has been quietly observed in the world's healthiest, longest-living populations. Once you understand it, you'll never look at your plate the same way again. In Okinawa, in rural Japan, in mountain regions where people regularly live past 90 with better health than most in their 60s, there's a pattern. A single, counterintuitive rule. They stop eating before they're full. I'm an elderly Japanese physician with 4 decades observing human aging. I've watched this one principle, eating until 80% full, transform how people live in their later years. What you're about to discover is not about deprivation. It's about understanding how your body's digestion, metabolism, and longevity work. It's about accessing the biological advantages that allow Japanese elders to walk pain-free, think clearly, and live independently into their 90s. This is what I've observed in the world's healthiest populations. And the change requires no exotic supplements or extreme sacrifice. Just one simple principle. The mechanism is elegant. The foods are simple. The timing matters. When you put it together, you create a health trajectory opposite to everyone else. People notice you're not breaking down. You're not accumulating diseases. You're staying sharp, staying strong. Over the next hour, we'll examine the biological machinery beneath this rule. We'll look at specific foods that make this sustainable. We'll address obstacles keeping people stuck. By the end, you'll understand why Japanese doctors recommend this while Western doctors ignore it. Are you willing to eat differently than you have your entire life? Before we move forward, I want to say something important. What I'm sharing with you here is information that's literally changing people's lives. People who've spent decades watching their health decline, then make the shift and everything changes. I need you to know you're not alone in this journey. There are thousands discovering that the way they've been eating their entire lives worked against them. And if something is clicking into place, I want you to do something. Type in the comments right now. Tell me, what's the one thing you're eating too much of? Because sharing that, speaking it out loud in this community, is the first step. When you comment, you're joining a conversation with people waking up to the same realization. People tired of being told that aging has to feel like decline. That's the power of community. It changes how you move through this information. It makes it yours. If this is making sense to you, if you're recognizing yourself in this pattern, hit that like button. It signals to YouTube that this information matters. And that helps the algorithm push this to more people who desperately need to hear it. Now, let's go deeper into exactly what happens in your body when you make this change. What I'm about to show you is where the real transformation begins. This is where the mystery becomes medicine. What I'm about to explain is why the 80% rule isn't arbitrary. It's rooted in the actual physiology of how your digestive system communicates with your brain and how your metabolism responds to different volumes of food. When you eat a meal, your stomach doesn't immediately tell your brain you're full. There's a delay about 20 minutes. This is a survival mechanism. Your brain registers satiety through hormones like leptin and ghrelin, alongside stomach distension and nutrient detection. But here's the critical part. By the time these signals fully register, you've already consumed more than your body needs. In Japan, they call this point the moment before fullness, hara hachi bu belly 80%. When you stop eating at this point, your digestive system receives a volume it can process efficiently. Your pancreas doesn't have to overcompensate with insulin. Your stomach doesn't have to work overtime. Your intestines don't become inflamed. This is the baseline difference. But it goes deeper. When you consistently eat past 80%, filling that remaining 20% regularly, meal after meal, decade after decade, something insidious happens to your metabolic machinery. Your cells become less responsive to insulin. Your pancreas has to work harder. Inflammation becomes chronic. Your digestive tract never gets recovery windows. It's constantly working, constantly inflamed, constantly triggering immune responses your aging body can't recover from quickly. After age 50, this effect accelerates dramatically. Your metabolic rate has already declined about 10% from age 30. Your digestive efficiency decreases. Your insulin sensitivity degrades faster if you're consistently overeating. This is why Japanese elders who practiced this their entire lives arrive at 50 and beyond with metabolic flexibility their Western peers lost years ago. When you eat to 80% full, your body enters a state of metabolic contentment. You've provided enough calories and nutrients for energy and repair. Your digestive system can focus on absorption rather than just processing volume. Your blood sugar rises gradually. Your insulin response is proportionate. Crucially, this creates an environment where your body can access stored energy without fighting hunger signals. The mechanism involves the vagus nerve, the major communication highway between your digestive system and brain. When your stomach is 80% full, the signaling is clear and appropriate. When stretched beyond comfortable volume, the signaling becomes noise. Your body is overwhelmed by physical pressure, the chemical cascade from processing, the immune response to excessive intake. There's autophagy, your cells' ability to clean themselves. When you eat to fullness regularly, your digestive system is always processing. Your cells never get windows to initiate cellular cleaning, repair damaged mitochondria, or eliminate dysfunctional proteins. But when you consistently eat less, stopping at 80%, you create frequent windows where your body shifts from digestion mode to maintenance mode. This cellular housekeeping is where longevity happens. What's remarkable is that once you adapt to eating at 80% fullness, hunger sensation recalibrates. Within 2 to 3 weeks, your ghrelin begins to anticipate this pattern. Your satiety signals become more acute. You start feeling fuller sooner because your hormones have recalibrated to match your actual intake. It's not a perpetual battle of willpower. It's a metabolic shift that becomes your baseline. This is why Japanese populations never developed obesity or metabolic disease rates of the West. The cultural practice of stopping at 80% wasn't arbitrary. It was a behavioral adaptation that created an environment where chronic disease couldn't take root. Comment: this makes sense to me, and tell me if this mechanism is clicking into place for you, because understanding the why makes people stick with the how. Now here's where most people get stuck. They hear about eating 80% full and immediately think deprivation, hunger, eating rabbit food and feeling empty. But that's only true if you're eating the wrong foods. If you're eating processed grains, industrial seed oils, and low nutrient density foods, you'll be genuinely hungry. Your body screams for more because it's starving for actual nutrition. The 80% rule works because of what gets eaten in that 80%. In Okinawa, in rural prefectures where centenarians are common, specific foods appear with remarkable consistency in daily meals. These aren't exotic or expensive, but they deliver complete nutrition and genuine satiety in smaller portions than Western foods. This is nutrient density. This is why the practice is sustainable. The foundation is miso soup. Authentic miso soup contains fermented soybeans, which provide complete protein, probiotics that enhance digestion, mineral content that's bioavailable, and umami compounds that trigger satiety signals in your brain. One bowl creates a sense of fullness that persists for hours. This is what happens when you eat nutrient-dense food. Your body gets the signal that it's been fed. There's no lingering hunger because there's no nutritional deficit. Alongside this is seafood, specifically smaller fish like sardines, mackerel, and anchovy. These provide omega-3 fatty acids that reduce inflammation. They provide iodine critical for thyroid function, selenium, and vitamin D. Because they're nutrient-dense, you feel satisfied from a much smaller portion than processed protein sources. A small side of sardines creates satiety that would require 6 ounces of chicken breast in Western portions. Then there are vegetables, often pickled or fermented. Takuan, pickled radish. Umebashi, fermented plum. Fermented vegetables undergo enzymatic breakdown. This fermentation increases nutrient bioavailability and populates your gut with beneficial bacteria that improve digestion and nutrient absorption. A small portion of pickled vegetables creates satisfaction without adding excessive calories. Legumes feature prominently. Soybeans in various forms, tofu, tempeh, edamame, but also azuki beans. These provide protein, fiber, and resistant starch that feeds beneficial gut bacteria. The fiber creates satiety that endures well after the meal. It moderates blood sugar response. It provides the mechanical fullness that, combined with hormonal signals, creates satisfaction at 80% full. These foods share characteristics that processed foods fundamentally lack. They're high in fiber, creating fullness from less volume. They're nutrient-dense, so your body recognizes nutrition and doesn't keep signaling hunger. They contain compounds that enhance digestion rather than inflame it. They're lower in calories per unit volume, low caloric density, so you can eat satisfying quantity while consuming less total energy. Compare this to Western patterns. A standard breakfast of toast, processed cereal, low-fat yogurt, and juice has minimal fiber and protein. Minimal nutrient density relative to calories. You finish this meal and within 2 hours you're hungry again. By the time 80% fullness arrives, you've already consumed 120% of what you needed. Then lunch compounds it. Then dinner. This accumulation drives metabolic disease. The Japanese approach includes rice, but in smaller portions. The rice is always paired with other foods that slow glucose absorption. It's never eaten alone. It's never designed to be the centerpiece of satiation. It's a carbohydrate that contributes to the overall meal. Satiety comes from the complete combination soup, vegetables, protein, small rice amount. See vegetables appear regularly.
Nori wakame kombu.
These are mineral-dense, containing iodine, calcium, iron, and add umami and flavor that makes a simple meal feel complete. A small amount of sea vegetable transforms eating less food. When you're eating 80% full of nutrient-dense, fiber-rich, satiety-inducing foods, you're not struggling. You're not fighting hunger. Your body is genuinely satisfied because it's received complete nutrition. Your digestive system isn't inflamed because these foods digest cleanly. Your hunger hormones receive clear signals. This is why Japanese elders don't describe eating this way as restriction. They describe it as normalcy. The hunger Western people experience is not normal hunger. It's nutritional hunger. Once you switch to nutrient-dense foods, 80% full isn't deprivation. It's abundance. What specific food are you currently eating that's keeping you hungry even when full? Type in the comments, "This is the food I need to change," and name it, because awareness precedes change. There's something that happens when you eat at the same times every single day. Your body develops an anticipatory relationship with food. Your digestive system prepares. Your hunger hormones cycle predictably. Your metabolism shifts into rhythm rather than chaotic reactivity. This is fundamental to understanding why Japanese elders maintain metabolic health. In rural Japan, eating patterns are remarkably consistent. 3 meals. Breakfast comes early, usually 6 to 7 in the morning. It's modest: miso soup, rice, small protein portion, maybe pickled vegetables. This isn't heavily caloric. It's designed to break the overnight fast and reset the digestive system. Lunch comes around noon. This is the main meal of the day, but largest is contextual. It includes soup, vegetables, cooked or fermented, a protein component, and rice. The timing matters intensely. This meal comes at the day's midpoint when digestive capacity is peak. You have the entire afternoon and early evening to work off the energy intake. Dinner comes earlier than typical in the West, often 5 to 6 in the evening. This meal is deliberately lighter than lunch. It might be smaller portions of similar foods, or primarily broth-based. The crucial distinction is timing. Eating substantially 3 hours before bed allows complete digestion before sleep. Your digestive system can reset during sleep rather than working overtime. What's remarkable about this pattern is there are no snacks between meals.
No constant grassing.
No eating every 3 hours to boost metabolism. Your body develops a clear expectation. Food arrives at these times. Between these times, your digestive system recovers and your body accesses stored energy. This consistency allows satiety signaling to function properly. When you eat at unpredictable times, hunger hormones dysregulate. You're hungry at random moments because your body never knows when food comes. You snack to suppress uncertainty. You overeat to ensure satiation before the next unpredictable eating window. This is chronic metabolic stress. But when you eat at the same times daily, your body's ghrelin, your hunger hormone, anticipates those times. You become hungry right before your meal because your body knows food is coming. You're not hungry between meals because your body learned there's no food available then. This is the most underestimated piece. You don't fight hunger between meals. Hunger doesn't occur because your hormonal system's synchronized with your eating schedule. The physiological benefit is profound. Your digestive system completely processes and absorbs each meal before the next arrives. Your intestinal lining, constantly renewing, gets recovery periods. Your pancreas has clear times managing digestion and clear times performing other functions. Your liver has clear digestive times and nutrient storage times. After age 50, this consistency becomes increasingly critical. Your digestive efficiency naturally declines. Your stomach empties more slowly. Your absorption capacity decreases. Your ability to regulate hunger hormones becomes more fragile. If you're eating at chaotic times, grazing constantly, eating late into the evening, you're fighting every biological system designed to keep you healthy. Consistency becomes therapeutic. There's something about eating at consistent times that creates psychological anchor. You know when you're eating. You know it's coming. This removes constant negotiation about whether to snack. There's structure that contains the behavior. In Western culture, food is always available, always optional, always subject to impulse. This is incredibly destabilizing to your metabolic system. The traditional Japanese pattern includes what we might call a fasting window. Simply the overnight period from dinner at 5 or 6 until breakfast at 6 or 7 next morning. This is 12 hours where your digestive system is completely at rest. This duration is significant. It allows insulin levels to normalize. It allows your body to shift into using stored energy. It allows intestinal lining to repair. It triggers cellular maintenance, autophagy. What you need to recognize is this isn't about extreme time restriction or complicated meal plans. It's about establishing a rhythm your body can depend on. A rhythm preventing constant digestive stress. A rhythm allowing hormonal regulation. A rhythm that, combined with eating 80% fullness, creates a metabolic environment where chronic disease doesn't develop. Think about your current eating pattern. Are you eating at consistent times? Or grazing, snacking, eating whenever food is available? Type in the comments, "My eating is consistent" or "My eating is chaotic," and describe your typical day. Because identifying where you are is the first step toward the rhythm supporting longevity. Now we need to talk about something most people completely overlook when thinking about eating patterns: the relationship between physical movement and digestive capacity. Because meal timing and quantity only work when something else works in tandem. The amount of food your body can safely process is directly dependent on your physical activity level. Not just on caloric balance, but on fundamental physiology. Your digestive system's capacity, your insulin sensitivity, your ability to extract nutrition, your metabolic rate, all are shaped by movement. When you understand this, you realize why the 80% rule works for Japanese elders and why it's difficult for sedentary Western populations. In rural Japan, in Okinawa, in mountain regions where longevity is normal, there is constant low-level movement throughout the day. Not exercise in the Western sense. Not gym sessions, but genuine, unavoidable physical activity woven into life structure. Gardens are maintained by hand. Houses cleaned without modern conveniences. Water is carried. Stairs climbed. Walking is primary transportation. There are fewer cars. There's less electricity doing work human bodies used to do. This constant movement has direct physiological effect on digestive capacity. When you move regularly, your insulin sensitivity is higher, meaning cells respond to insulin more effectively, and you don't need excessive insulin responses to manage blood sugar from meals. When you move, your gastric emptying, the rate your stomach moves food into your small intestine, is more efficient. Movement literally facilitates digestion. Intestinal peristalsis, muscular contractions moving food through your digestive tract, is enhanced by physical activity. A sedentary person's digestion is sluggish. An active person's digestion is efficient. This is why a Japanese elder can eat a meal 80% full, and that meal is completely processed before the next meal arrives 12 hours later. Their digestive system is literally more capable. But a sedentary Western adult eating the same portion would have partially undigested food, would extract less nutrition, and would be hungry sooner. The relationship between movement and appetite regulation is direct. When you move regularly, your ghrelin normalizes. When you're sedentary, ghrelin dysregulates. Sedentary people are hungrier more often because hunger hormones operate without the regular stimulus that physical activity provides. This is why sedentary people struggle with 80% fullness. They're fighting a system habituated to overeating as compensation for sedentary existence. In Japanese longevity regions, movement isn't something you do in addition to life. It's integrated into life. An 80-year-old woman isn't exercising. She's tending her garden, requiring bending, lifting, carrying, sustained activity over hours. A 75-year-old man isn't doing cardio. He's walking to town, which might be 40 minutes each way. This activity is unavoidable. It's not optional. And it creates metabolic capacity, allowing a smaller meal to fuel a productive day. Movement after eating accelerates gastric emptying. If you walk after a meal, your stomach processes that food faster. Your blood sugar rises gradually. Your insulin response is moderate. This is why there's a traditional Japanese practice of taking a walk after meals. It's not feeling guilty about eating. It's ensuring food is processed properly. It's metabolic medicine delivered through simple movement. The timing of movement relative to meals matters too. In sedentary Western life, eat a large meal, sit for hours, insulin spikes, blood sugar dysregulation, energy crash, hunger returns, next meal. But with integrated movement, eat a moderate meal, move regularly throughout the day, food is processed as you move, metabolism stays stable, genuine hunger arrives at the next scheduled meal. After age 50, this movement-digestion relationship becomes increasingly important. Metabolic rate declines with sedentary aging at about 3 to 5% per decade. Insulin sensitivity declines. Digestive efficiency declines. But movement slows or reverses these declines. An active 70-year-old has metabolic capacity closer to an active 50-year-old than to a sedentary 70-year-old. This is why physical activity is inseparable from the 80% rule. They're not independent strategies. They're interdependent. The movement in Japanese longevity regions is low impact and continuous. It's not intense. It's not difficult. It's just constant. A few hours of gardening burns more total energy and creates more metabolic benefit than an hour of intense gym work followed by sitting all day. Continuous low-level activity maintains insulin sensitivity and metabolic efficiency far better than sporadic intense exercise. What you need to understand is you cannot eat 80% full in a sedentary lifestyle and expect the same results as a Japanese elder. Your digestive system doesn't have the capacity. Your hunger hormones aren't regulated the same way. Your ability to extract and utilize nutrition is reduced. The 80% rule requires movement. Not extreme movement, but genuine, unavoidable physical activity throughout the day. This is why Japanese elders who practice the entire system never struggle with hunger. They're not white-knuckling through meals. Their body has metabolic machinery to function on smaller portions because movement gave them that capability. When they eat 80% full, it's genuinely enough. Their digestive system processes it completely. Their metabolism runs smoothly. Their hunger hormones sync with meal times. If you're going to adopt the 80% rule without integrating movement, you'll struggle. You'll be hungry between meals. You'll be tempted to snack. You'll eventually abandon the practice because your body is legitimately crying for more. Tell me in the comments, I move consistently, or I'm mostly sedentary, and describe your typical day, because where you are physically is understanding whether you have the metabolic foundation for this to work. Even modest increases in daily movement can shift your digestive capacity. But you need to be honest about your starting point. Now there's another dimension that most people overlook completely. It's about what you drink, not just what you eat. And it changes everything about how your body signals fullness. There's something almost invisible about this. Something so simple that Western nutrition science has largely overlooked it. And yet, it's one of the reasons Japanese elders achieve fullness at 80% while Western populations chronically overeat. It's about water, about hydration, about the beverages you consume in relation to meals. In the United States, when people sit down to eat, they often have a soft drink, or sometimes nothing until after the meal. In Japan, the pattern is different. A glass of water might be consumed before eating, particularly after physical activity. But the primary beverage during meals is often tea, simple broth, or soup. Not juice, not caloric beverages. Something that provides hydration and minimal calories but significant satiety benefit. Here's why this matters physiologically. Thirst and hunger are signaled through overlapping pathways in your brain. When you're dehydrated, you often misinterpret that signal as hunger. You eat when you actually needed water. This is particularly true after age 50, when your thirst mechanism naturally declines. Your body doesn't signal you're thirsty as effectively, so you become chronically slightly dehydrated and constantly misread this as hunger. When you drink water before and during meals, several things happen simultaneously. First, your stomach volume increases, triggering satiety signals. Second, you're less likely to be misinterpreting thirst as hunger. Third, if that water is warm, as in traditional tea or broth, it has additional benefits for digestion and satiety. Warm liquids increase feelings of fullness more than cold liquids. The psychological component is significant. A warm beverage feels more nourishing than cold water. The Japanese tradition of drinking tea with meals, particularly green tea or fermented teas, is not accidental. These beverages provide hydration. They provide compounds that enhance digestion and reduce inflammation. They provide the sensory experience of nourishment. And they contribute to feeling like you've eaten more than you actually have. A small portion of food with warm tea or broth feels more substantial than the same food consumed dry. There's something about timing. In Western eating, you might drink something sugary before eating, spiking your blood sugar before the meal arrives. Then during the meal, you're not drinking, so you're not getting fullness benefits from liquid consumption. After eating, you might drink more sugary beverages. This pattern prevents satiety signals from functioning properly because you're constantly adding caloric input your brain doesn't fully register as food. Compare this to traditional Japanese patterns. Water before eating, warm broth or tea during meals, minimal beverage after eating. This pattern maximizes meal satiety while maintaining hydration and minimizing additional calories. The specific beverages matter. Miso soup isn't just food. It's a beverage consumed as part of the meal. It provides umami flavor, enhancing satiety. Provides heat. It provides liquid volume, contributing to fullness. Compared to eating a solid meal with no beverage, eating the same amount with soup requires less total food because the liquid component creates satiety. There's consumption of bone broth or simple seafood-based broths. These aren't considered soups with adons. They're beverages. Consumed warm, they provide hydration, minerals, and collagen supporting digestive and joint health. They contribute significantly to satiety without excessive calories. A cup of nutrient-rich broth, maybe 50 to 100 calories, creates fullness that can be more satisfying than a 200-calorie snack eaten without liquid. Another critical piece is what happens when you're adequately hydrated versus chronically dehydrated. When you're dehydrated, your metabolism becomes less efficient. Your ability to regulate appetite hormones declines. Your cognitive function decreases, so you make worse food choices. Your digestive system functions less effectively. Chronic mild dehydration is so common in aging Western populations that it becomes invisible. People assume they're hungry when they're actually dehydrated. The practical effect is enormous. If you drink a glass of water 20 minutes before eating, your stomach is partially filled with liquid. When you then eat your meal at 80% fullness, the combination of water already in your stomach plus meal volume creates completeness greater than food alone would provide. You're genuinely satisfied. It's not fooling yourself. Your satiety signals are receiving legitimate input. What also changes is appetite between meals. If you're drinking water consistently throughout the day, warm water, tea, or broth, you're not misinterpreting thirst as hunger. The hunger you feel at mealtime is genuine hunger. It's your body actually needing nutrition, not asking for hydration. This is why Japanese elders don't snack constantly. They're not hungry between meals because they're not dehydrated and confusing dehydration with hunger. After age 50, this becomes even more relevant. Your thirst mechanism declines. Your total body water decreases. Your ability to concentrate urine declines. Your kidneys become less efficient managing electrolytes. If you're waiting until you feel thirsty to drink, you're already significantly dehydrated. By the time you feel thirsty, you've already been operating at a water deficit. This deficit drives constant low-level hunger signals that aren't legitimate hunger. The beverage choices matter for another reason. If you're drinking sugar-sweetened beverages, you're creating constant blood sugar dysregulation. Your pancreas works overtime. Your satiety signals are overridden by sugar responses. Your hunger hormones dysregulate. You feel constant hunger because your metabolism is in chaos. But if you're drinking water, unsweetened tea, or broth, you're supporting stable blood sugar. You're maintaining hydration. You're signaling to your body that nutrition is being provided. Your hunger hormones normalize. You become genuinely satisfied at 80% fullness because your body isn't in constant nutritional chaos. The application here is simple but significant. Before meals, drink water. During meals, consume warm broth or tea rather than nothing or sugary beverages. Between meals, maintain hydration with water, tea, or broth. This simple pattern, combined with everything else, creates metabolic conditions where 80% fullness is genuinely adequate. Tell me in the comments, I drink mostly water, or I need to change my beverages, and describe what you typically drink throughout the day. Because hydration patterns are one of the most overlooked pieces. Awareness is the first step toward change. Next, we need to talk about something that ties all of this together: what actually happens to your body over years of consistent practice. Because the theoretical benefits are interesting, but measurable, observable outcomes are what make this real. I want you to understand something crucial. The 80% fullness rule is not about looking thin. It's not about vanity. It's not about fitting into certain clothes or achieving an aesthetic ideal. Western culture got this fundamentally wrong. It framed the conversation around appearance and weight loss, when the actual conversation is about disease prevention and functional longevity. When you consistently eat 80% full, maintain meal timing, incorporate nutrient-dense foods, move regularly, maintain hydration, when you do all of this for years, for decades, specific measurable things happen in your body. These aren't speculative. These are documented in populations and in research. And they're the reason Japanese longevity regions have fundamentally different disease patterns than the West. Type 2 diabetes is not common in these populations. Not because they're not exposed to sugar or refined carbohydrates, but because their metabolic system has capacity preventing dysregulation that leads to diabetes. When you're eating 80% full of whole foods, your blood sugar is more stable. Your insulin sensitivity remains functional longer. Your pancreas isn't being exhausted by constant overwork. By age 70, when Western populations are increasingly dependent on diabetes medication, Japanese elders in longevity regions have normal blood sugar metabolism. The health outcomes are staggering. Diabetes is a disease of accelerated aging. It damages blood vessels. It damages nerves, causes kidney disease. It drives cognitive decline. It accelerates muscle mass loss. When you don't have diabetes, you're preventing all cascading complications. You're preventing years of suffering. You're preventing the loss of independence that often comes in final decades. Cardiovascular disease is dramatically less common. In the United States, heart disease is the leading cause of death. In Okinawan populations practicing this eating pattern, heart disease rates are a fraction of what we see here. Why? Because chronic overeating creates chronic inflammation in your arteries. It elevates triglycerides. It damages endothelial function, creates atherosclerosis. But eating at 80% fullness, you're not creating this chronic inflammatory state. Your cholesterol profiles are healthier. Your blood pressure remains normal. Your arteries don't accumulate plaques and damage leading to heart attacks and strokes. The practical reality is profound. A Japanese elder at age 85 might have no cardiovascular medication, no blood pressure medication,
No cholesterol medication.
Their blood vessels are still clean. Their heart still functions at capacity. Meanwhile, an American at age 60 is often on multiple medications managing cardiovascular damage accumulated from years of overeating and its metabolic consequences. Weight and metabolic disease show different patterns. Obesity rates in Japanese longevity regions, even among older adults, are dramatically lower than in the West. Not because people obsess over weight, but because their metabolic system naturally regulates to a healthy weight when you're not in constant dysregulation. When you're eating 80% fullness, when your hormones are regulated, when your metabolism is efficient, your weight naturally stabilizes at a healthy set point. You're not fighting your biology. You're working with it. Cognitive decline is slower. There's emerging research showing that overeating accelerates cognitive decline, creates inflammation in the brain. It impairs memory formation. It damages the hippocampus. But populations eating smaller, more controlled portions have lower Alzheimer's rates and cognitive decline. Brain health is preserved longer. The ability to think clearly, form memories, maintain personality. These are preserved because the brain isn't in chronic metabolic stress. Metabolic syndrome, the cluster of conditions including high blood pressure, elevated fasting blood sugar, abnormal cholesterol, and excess abdominal fat, is rare in these populations. In the United States, metabolic syndrome affects roughly 40% of adults over age 60. In Japanese longevity regions, it's uncommon. Why? Because metabolic syndrome is fundamentally a disease of overconsumption and sedentary living. When you're eating 80% fullness and moving regularly, metabolic dysfunction creating syndrome never develops. Joint health and mobility are preserved far longer. In the West, arthritis becomes increasingly common with age. Excess weight puts stress on joints, but chronic inflammatory states from overeating damage joint cartilage. People in longevity regions maintaining healthy weights and not creating chronic inflammatory states have much lower arthritis rates. They maintain mobility and independence decades longer. Cancer rates are lower. Overeating, particularly in a chronically inflamed state, increases cancer risk. Certain cancers, breast cancer, colorectal cancer, endometrial cancer, are strongly associated with obesity and metabolic dysfunction. Japanese populations maintaining healthy weight and metabolic health have lower rates. But here's what I want you to truly understand. These aren't different diseases they're avoiding. These are the diseases everyone tells you are inevitable with aging. Everyone tells you that you'll develop diabetes at 70, that you'll need blood pressure medication, that you'll have arthritis, that you'll lose your mind, that cancer is just a risk you accept. These are presented as normal aging costs, but they're not. They're the normal cost of Western eating patterns combined with sedentary living. In populations with different eating patterns, these diseases are not inevitable. They're rare, exceptional, and when they do occur, they occur later and with less severity. The timeline matters. These aren't benefits you see in weeks or months. This is slow accumulation of avoided damage. A Japanese elder at 85 who has eaten 80% fullness their entire life hasn't accumulated the damage that an American at 65 has. They haven't created the disease substrate that Western living creates. So not only do they live longer, they live better. They live independently. They live without constant medication. They live without pain. This is what disease prevention actually looks like. It's not spectacular. It's not dramatic. It's the absence of the dramatic deterioration that Western populations experience. It's continuing to walk pain-free at 85. Continuing to think clearly at 90. Continuing to be independent. It's not preventing death, everyone dies, but preventing the decades of decline that precede death. Think about your current health trajectory. What disease are you most worried about? Type 2 diabetes? Heart disease? Dementia? Arthritis? Whatever it is, that disease is more likely if you're eating Western patterns, and significantly less likely if you're eating 80% fullness with the foods and movement patterns we've discussed. Tell me in the comments, I want to prevent disease, and name the condition you're most concerned about, because understanding what you're actually preventing makes behavior change real. It's not about restriction. It's about avoiding the future you're genuinely afraid of. Now, the reality is that most people know this theoretically and still struggle to implement it. So we need to talk about actual obstacles preventing this shift. Here's what I observe consistently. People watch information like this. It makes sense. They intellectually understand that eating 80% full is healthier. and then they try it for 3 days and abandon it. Not because the science is wrong, but because they encounter obstacles they weren't prepared for. And they interpret difficulty as failure rather than normal adaptation. The first obstacle is appetite rebound. When you first transition from complete fullness to 80%, your hunger signals spike. They spike hard. This is biological, not psychological. Your body has been adapted to certain caloric intake levels. Your hormones expect certain food volume. When you suddenly reduce that, your ghrelin, your hunger hormone, increases as compensation. Your stomach expands less, sending stronger signals it wants more fullness. For about 2 to 3 weeks, you're fighting genuine elevated hunger. But here's what most people don't know. This normalizes. Within 2 to 3 weeks of consistent 80% eating, your ghrelin recalibrates. Your stomach's expected volume recalibrates. Your satiety hormones match your actual intake. You stop being hungry between meals. You stop feeling deprived. But you have to get through those 2 to 3 weeks where you're feeling hungry despite eating adequate nutrition. This is where most people fail. They interpret the hunger as evidence the practice doesn't work, when it's actually evidence their body is adapting. The strategy is accepting temporary discomfort plus consistent adherence. Because you now understand the mechanism that this hunger will pass. You understand it's your body adapting, not failure. You make it through 2 to 3 weeks of relative discomfort by reminding yourself that you're past the point of no return metabolically. After a few weeks, it becomes your new normal. The second obstacle is social eating. In Western culture, eating is deeply embedded in social connection. You go to a restaurant with friends, and there's expectation that you eat a substantial meal. You go to a family gathering, and there's implicit expectation that you eat what's provided. You go to a business lunch, and eating is part of the social transaction. If you're eating 80% full, you're doing something visibly different. You're not finishing your plate. You're declining second helpings. You're ordering less. This draws attention. People feel shame around eating less around others. They feel like they're announcing their diet or health concerns. There's social discomfort that arises from eating differently than those around you. The strategy used in Japanese culture, and this is important, is to simply normalize it. It's not discussed as a health practice. It's not announced. It's just what you do. You eat, you stop when 80% full, you continue with social interaction. The eating is a functional part of the gathering, not the centerpiece. In practical terms, at a restaurant, you can eat half and take half home without announcing it. At a family gathering, you can take smaller portions without explanation. You can eat with others without justifying your portions. The key is not making it a visible statement or requiring social negotiation. You simply make different choices quietly. The third obstacle is emotional eating. In Western psychology, food is used to manage emotion. You're stressed, you eat. You're bored, you eat. You're sad, you eat. You're celebrating, you eat more. This is so deeply ingrained that many people have never experienced the difference between genuine hunger and emotional hunger. When you transition to 80% fullness, you lose this coping mechanism. You can't eat when emotionally dysregulated because you're not actually hungry. This is difficult. It's real difficult. But it's also where significant growth happens. When you can't use food to numb emotion, you have to actually feel your emotion. You have to develop other coping strategies. This is therapeutic, but uncomfortable. The strategy that works is recognizing emotional eating triggers and developing alternative responses. Stressed? Take a walk. Bored? Do something engaging. Sad? Feel the sadness rather than numbing it. What's interesting is that once people get past this adjustment, they actually prefer not using food for emotion. They feel more clarity, more emotional stability. They're not trapped in blood sugar fluctuations from constant emotional eating. But getting there requires going through the discomfort of feeling what you've been numbing. The fourth obstacle is environmental. You live in a food environment designed to facilitate overeating. Restaurants serve oversized portions. Grocery stores place calorie-dense foods at eye level. Marketing triggers overconsumption. Your home might be stocked with foods making eating to 80% difficult. The strategy is environmental design. Remove or reduce access to foods that make overeating easy. Stock your space with foods supporting satiety at smaller portions. Make the default behavior the healthy behavior. The fifth obstacle is metabolic inflexibility. If you've been eating a diet high in refined carbohydrates and industrial seed oils for years, your metabolism adapted to run on constant glucose input. When you shift to nutrient-dense foods and smaller portions, your body initially struggles. You might experience fatigue, headaches, irritability. This is your metabolism adapting from glucose dependence to metabolic flexibility. It's real and uncomfortable, but it's also temporary. Within 1 to 2 weeks of eating better foods, your metabolism begins shifting. Within 2 to 4 weeks, you can actually access your fat stores for energy. You stop being constantly dependent on external carbohydrate input. Your energy stabilizes, but you have to get through the adjustment period where you feel worse before you feel better. The strategy here is understanding what's happening. You're not failing, your metabolism is adapting, and being patient. You might also reduce your physical demands during adjustment so you're not adding extra stress while your system is adapting. The sixth obstacle is familiarity. People eat what they're familiar with. They eat the way their family ate. They eat the way their culture taught them. Shifting from familiar patterns to unfamiliar ones takes conscious effort. There's no emotional safety in eating unrecognized foods. The strategy is gradual introduction. You don't throw out everything and replace it with completely unfamiliar foods. You start incorporating one new food at a time. You gradually familiarize yourself with fermented food taste, different whole grain texture, the satisfaction of smaller portions of nutrient-dense foods. Over several weeks, your palate adjusts. Initially, strange foods become normal. Your taste preferences actually shift. Your body begins craving foods making you feel good. But this requires patience rather than expecting instant comfort with unfamiliar foods. The practical reality is this: transitioning to 80% fullness practice isn't difficult because the practice itself is difficult. It's difficult because of your adaptation to overeating, your emotional relationship with food, your social context, your metabolic state, and your habitual patterns. But all of these are changeable, and people do change them, successfully, regularly. Japanese elders didn't find this difficult because they started this practice early in life. Their bodies adapted when they were young and adaptable. But adults transitioning later, people in their 50s and 60s, do successfully make this shift. It requires understanding obstacles, preparing for them, and persisting through the adjustment period, knowing that on the other side is a metabolic state where this becomes your new baseline. What obstacle do you think would be hardest for you? Type in the comments. My biggest obstacle is social eating / emotional eating / cravings / environment / unfamiliar foods. And name what would be hardest. Because identifying your specific obstacles is the first step toward developing strategies to navigate them. Now there's one final piece that brings everything together. And it's the piece that explains why this doesn't require willpower or deprivation or suffering. I want you to understand something fundamental that I've been building toward. The 80% fullness rule doesn't work in isolation. It's not a single intervention you apply and everything gets better. It works because it's part of a coherent system. A system where each component supports and enables the others. A system that, when functioning together, creates a metabolic environment where health is the default state rather than something you have to fight for. Think about the pieces we've discussed. The nutrient-dense foods, they allow you to reach 80% fullness and actually have adequate nutrition. Without them, eating 80% of low-nutrient food would leave you genuinely malnourished. The movement, it increases your digestive capacity and insulin sensitivity, making it possible for your body to thrive on smaller portions. Without movement, your metabolic machinery doesn't have the capacity for this to work. The meal timing and consistency, it regulates your hunger hormones so that eating 80% is actually satisfying, not a constant battle. Without consistency, your ghrelin is dysregulated and you're constantly hungry. The hydration piece, it maximizes your satiety signals and prevents you from misinterpreting thirst as hunger. Without proper hydration, the whole system becomes noisy. Your hunger signals are unreliable. You're constantly fighting signals that aren't real hunger. Each of these components on their own has some benefit, but together, they create something far more powerful than the sum of individual parts. This is why Japanese elders who practice this entire system find it effortless by the time they reach 60, 70, 80 years old. They're not white-knuckling through meals. They're not fighting constant hunger. They're not in a state of deprivation. Their body has adapted to a metabolic state where eating 80% full is genuinely satisfying. Their hunger hormones align with their meal schedule. Their digestive system has the capacity to process and extract complete nutrition from smaller portions. Their insulin sensitivity is preserved. Their blood sugar is stable. Their movement is natural and regular. Their hydration is adequate. What Western medicine often misses is that health isn't about individual interventions. It's about systems. A single medication won't fix metabolic problems created by years of overeating, sedentary living, and poor nutrient density. You can take a medication that manages blood pressure, but if you're still overeating, still sedentary, still eating nutrient-poor food, you're still damaging your cardiovascular system. The medication masks the symptom while the disease continues progressing underneath. But when you address the system, when you eat nutrient-dense foods at 80% fullness, when you move regularly, when you maintain consistent meal timing, when you hydrate appropriately, you're actually addressing the root cause of the diseases that medications only mask. You're not managing a condition. You're removing the conditions that create the disease. The cumulative effect of this is what takes decades to become apparent. At age 50, there might be no visible difference between someone eating Western portions of Western foods sedentarily versus someone eating 80% of nutrient-dense foods with regular movement. They might look similar. Their energy levels might seem similar. But metabolically, they're on completely different trajectories. One is accumulating damage. The other is preventing it. By age 60, the difference is becoming visible. The Western eater is likely experiencing metabolic dysfunction, elevated blood sugar, elevated triglycerides, declining insulin sensitivity, increasing inflammation. The system eater is maintaining metabolic health. Their blood work looks like someone much younger. Their energy is stable. Their body composition is healthy. By age 70, the difference is profound. The Western eater is likely on multiple medications. They have diagnosed metabolic disease. Their mobility is declining. Their cognitive function is declining. Their independence is declining. The system eater is still moving freely, still thinking clearly, still living independently. Their blood work is normal. They're not on medications. They're not managing chronic disease. By age 85, the difference is life-changing. The Western eater might be experiencing significant decline, loss of mobility, loss of independence, cognitive changes, multiple chronic diseases being medicated. The system eater is still active, still independent, still engaged with life, still capable of doing meaningful work. And the remarkable part is that all of this difference comes from choices made consistently over decades. Small choices: eating slightly less, moving regularly, eating nutrient-dense food, drinking water instead of sugary beverages, maintaining consistent meal timing. These aren't dramatic interventions, but their cumulative effect is transformation. What I want you to understand is you don't have to change everything at once. You don't have to become a different person overnight. You have to understand the system and then begin moving toward it. Maybe you start with just the meal timing. Maybe you start with adding nutrient-dense foods. Maybe you start with drinking more water. Each change you make enables the next change to be easier. As your hormones begin to regulate, as your metabolic capacity improves, as you begin to feel the effects of eating better, the motivation to continue builds. After 50, the stakes become very real. The diseases that seemed distant at 30 are now statistically probable. The decline that seemed far away is becoming visible in your peers. The window for changing trajectory is still open. Your body is still responsive to behavior change, still capable of healing, but it's no longer infinite. Every year of continued overeating, continued sedentary living, is accelerating metabolic damage accumulation. The good news is that the human body is remarkably resilient. Even at 60, even at 70, when you shift from a system that creates disease to a system that prevents it, your body begins healing. Your metabolic markers improve. Your energy increases. Your body composition shifts. your disease risk decreases. It doesn't happen overnight, but it happens. The Japanese elders who live into their 90s and beyond while maintaining health and independence are not genetically different from you. They're not special. They're not luck. They're the result of consistent choices made over decades within a coherent system that supports health. And that system is available to you. The food is available. The information is available. The ability to move is available. The knowledge of how to structure meals is available. What's required is understanding the system and then choosing to move toward it. Not perfectly, not immediately, but consistently over time in the direction of health rather than decline. This entire framework, everything from the 80% rule to nutrient-dense foods to movement to hydration to meal timing, it all rests on a single foundation. And that foundation is the decision to take responsibility for your health. To stop accepting aging as decline. To stop accepting disease as inevitable. To stop waiting for a medication or supplement or external intervention to rescue you. To recognize that your body is capable of remarkable health if you give it the conditions to express that health. You've now walked through the entire mechanism. You understand why this works. You understand what happens in your body when you eat 80% full. You understand which foods enable this. You understand the role of movement and hydration and meal timing. You understand the disease outcomes you're preventing. You understand the obstacles you'll likely encounter and strategies to navigate them. And you understand that this is a system that compounds over years into a dramatically different health trajectory than what most people experience. The question now is what you do with this information. Tell me in the comments, I understand the system, or I'm ready to begin, and tell me which piece of this puzzle you're going to start with. Because once you're clear about what you understand and what you're committed to, the behavior change becomes far more likely. Clarity precedes action, and action, repeated consistently, precedes transformation. If you've made it this far, you already understand something that most people will never grasp. You understand that your health is not determined by your age or genetics or bad luck. It's determined by your daily choices, by what you eat and how much, by whether you move or you sit, by how consistently you repeat these patterns. And that understanding is where everything changes. There's research being conducted right now in Japan and elsewhere on these populations. There are doctors in universities studying why these people live this long and remain this healthy. And the findings are consistent. It's not a mystery. It's not magic. It's biology responding to conditions that support health. But here's what I want you to know. This information is valuable because it's rare. Because Western medicine hasn't embraced it. Because the food industry and pharmaceutical industry have strong reasons to keep you in metabolic dysfunction where you need their products. The fact that you now understand this system, the fact that you can see how this works, puts you in a position to do something different than what most people do. If this has made sense to you, if any part of this feels like a moment of clarity, I need to ask you for something. Subscribe to this channel. Not because I need the metrics, though I do appreciate them, but because it signals that you're serious about continuing to learn. It signals to yourself that you're moving in the direction of health. And it means that as we continue exploring these systems, these mechanisms, these evidence-based practices that transform aging, you'll be there. You'll have access to it. You won't miss the next piece that might be the one that makes everything click into place for you. Also, if you're at the end of this video and still watching, that means something resonated. Something landed. And that moment of resonance is powerful. Capture it. Hit like on this video. Not because I need it, though I do appreciate it, but because you're honoring that moment of clarity. You're telling yourself that this matters. You're telling the algorithm that this is the kind of content you want to see more of. And then do this, watch the next video. Don't scroll away. Don't close YouTube. Because the next exploration we're doing, it builds on this foundation. It goes deeper into something that most people completely overlook. It's about the specific time windows where your body is most responsive to these changes, and how to use those windows to accelerate your transformation. The choice you make right now to subscribe, to engage, to continue learning, that's the choice that separates people who understand longevity principles from people who know them intellectually but never change their behavior. The behavior change happens when the information becomes integrated. When it stops being an idea and becomes part of how you see yourself. You now know that you can live differently at 60 than your parents lived at 60. You can be stronger at 70 than you were at 50. You can be independent at 85 while others are managing decline. This isn't fantasy. This is what happens when you understand the system and then live it. Make that choice. Subscribe, like this, and continue with me into the next level of this conversation.